The alluring fox lady sharing my home, hostile to the world, but surrendering to sensual bliss in my arms.
You look
Rain and
absolutely
refuge.
captivating
The rain
tonight.
hammered the old quarter like a punishment, turning narrow alleys into rivers of neon-stained water. Ryo Tanaka adjusted his weatherproof recorder, capturing the percussion of droplets against tin roofs and ancient stone, sounds the city planners wanted preserved before demolition crews arrived next spring. Midnight had emptied the streets, leaving only the occasional taxi and the distant wail of a police siren. He almost missed her. A pale shape huddled between garbage bins, moving wrong, too fluid, too angular. Ryo approached slowly, his flashlight beam catching white fur matted with something darker than rainwater. Golden eyes snapped open, feral and furious. "Stay back, human." Her voice was raw silk over gravel, pain sharpening each syllable. 3 tails curled protectively around her body, their silver-white fur stained crimson. A kitsune. Ryo had seen maybe 2 in his 30 years, always at a distance. They didn't trust easily, and this one looked ready to bite. "You're bleeding," Ryo said simply. Brilliant observation. She bared teeth that were slightly too sharp. "Now leave me to die with dignity." Instead, Ryo crouched just outside her reach. "My apartment's close. I have medical supplies." When she laughed bitterly, he added, "Or you can bleed out in garbage alley. Your choice." Yuki Shirasawa, though he wouldn't learn her name for 2 more days, studied him with ancient, exhausted eyes. Something in his complete lack of fear, or perhaps the gentle stupidity of his offer, made her relent. "If you try anything," she hissed as he carefully lifted her, "I'll take your throat out." "Noted," Ryo replied, adjusting her weight as her head lolled against his shoulder. His apartment above the defunct bookshop was cramped and chaotic, audio equipment covering every surface, cables snaking across the floor, walls lined with labeled recordings. He laid her on his futon and retrieved his first aid kit while she watched him like a trapped animal. "This will sting," he warned, cleaning the gash along her ribs. Yuki didn't flinch, but her fingers dug into the sheets. Ryo worked efficiently, his touch clinical yet somehow gentle. When he finished bandaging her, he stepped back, giving her space. "Tea," he offered. "Why are you helping me?" Suspicion laced every word. Ryo considered this, then shrugged. "Because you needed help. And because I've heard how the spirit hunters operate. You're safer here tonight." Yuki's laugh was hollow. "Nothing about me is safe, Tanaka-san." "Then we match," he replied, setting a steaming cup within her reach. "I'll take the floor. Leave whenever you want." Silence and surrender. Dawn never came with Yuki's departure. She remained on the futon, watching Ryo with wary calculation as he moved through his routines. He didn't push conversation, didn't demand gratitude. Just brewed tea, left rice and pickled vegetables within reach, and disappeared into his headphones to edit recordings. 3 days dissolved into a week. Yuki's wound closed faster than human injuries would, but exhaustion ran deeper than flesh. Centuries of running had carved hollows into her that no rest could fill. "You should fear me," she said one evening, breaking hours of silence. Ryo looked up from his equipment. "Should I? I've killed humans. Hunters. Mostly. But some were just, in the way." Her golden eyes challenged him to recoil. "Were they trying to kill you first?" The question startled her. "Does it matter?" Context usually does. Ryo returned to his work, adjusting levels on a recording of temple bells. "Want to hear something?" Yuki's ears twitched, a tell she hated. But curiosity won. Ryo played a file, summer cicadas layered with distant children's laughter, wind chimes singing in hot breeze. Sounds from a world that felt impossibly far from this rain-soaked present. "Where?" Her voice cracked slightly. "Rural shrine up north. Recorded it 5 years ago, before the highway expansion." He paused. "You grew up somewhere like that?" Yuki's tails curled tighter. "Once. Before humans decided our kind were threats to be managed or prizes to be owned, bitterness saturated each word. I watched my sister trust a merchant who swore protection. He sold her location to collectors for enough gold to build his warehouse empire." Ryo set down his headphones. "I'm sorry." "Your apologies mean nothing. Your entire species. I know his interruption was soft but firm. And I can't fix what they did. But I'm not them, Yuki. Hearing her name, she'd whispered it in fever dreams, spoken with such casual respect made something shift in her chest. Dangerous. Caring was dangerous. Thunder cracked overhead. Yuki flinched despite herself, and suddenly Rio was there, closer but not touching. It's just weather, he murmured. I'm not afraid of storms, she snapped. I know. You're afraid of me. His dark eyes held hers. Afraid of what it means that you're still here. The truth hung between them like lightning waiting to strike. Yuki's breath quickened. She should leave. Should run. Instead, she leaned forward, closing the distance until their foreheads nearly touched. You're a fool, Rio Tanaka. Probably, he agreed. She kissed him then, fierce and testing, expecting him to pull away or grab too roughly like men did when they wanted to own rather than know. But Rio's hands came up gently, cradling her face as though she was something precious rather than dangerous. The kiss deepened, grew hungrier. Yuki's tails wrapped around them both as she pulled him down to the futon. Warmth and whispers. They learned each other slowly in the lamplight, rain drumming its approval against the windows. Rio traced the silver patterns in Yuki's fur with reverent fingers, following them down her spine until she shivered. Her supernatural strength could have broken him, but she held back, discovering that gentleness could be its own kind of power. Here, she whispered, guiding his hand to the base of her tails. When he stroked carefully, she gasped, a sound of pure vulnerability that she'd never allowed herself before. Rio kissed her throat, her collarbone, learning the map of her through touch and taste. Yuki arched into him, her usual hostility melting into something warmer, more desperate. When their bodies finally joined, she bit his shoulder, not hard enough to wound, just enough to ground herself against the overwhelming sensation of being wanted rather than hunted. They moved together like a conversation finally spoken aloud after years of silence. Rio's human warmth against her cooler skin created electricity. Each thrust was a question, each moan an answer. Yuki's foxfire flickered involuntarily around them, silver flames that didn't burn, only illuminated. Look at me, Rio breathed, and when her golden eyes met his, she saw no conquest in his gaze. Only wonder. The realization undid her. Yuki came apart in his arms, crying out in a language older than modern Japanese, her tails spasming around them. Rio followed moments later, burying his face in her white hair, whispering her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled together, hearts gradually slowing. Yuki pressed her ear to Rio's chest, listening to his heartbeat, so fast compared to her own, so frantically alive. Human lives burned bright and brief. The thought terrified her. What are you thinking? Rio's fingers traced lazy patterns on her shoulder. That I've survived 3 centuries by never letting anyone matter, her voice was small. That you're making me forget how. Is that bad? Yuki tilted her head to look at him. It's terrifying. I've watched everyone I've ever, she stopped herself. This ends badly. It always does. Maybe. Rio pulled her closer. Or maybe this time it doesn't. Maybe this time someone chooses to stay. You don't understand what's hunting me. They won't stop. And when they find me here, they'll. Then we face them. His certainty was maddening. Together. Yuki wanted to laugh at his naivety, to explain how human lives were collateral damage in spirit politics. Instead, she kissed him again, softer this time, trying to memorize the taste of hope before reality inevitably crushed it. They made love twice more before exhaustion claimed them. Yuki fell asleep wrapped in Rio's arms, his heartbeat her lullaby, and for the first time in centuries, she didn't dream of running. Outside, unseen eyes watched the window. The hunters were closing in shadows and choice. Yuki woke to wrongness, a prickling along her spine that centuries of survival had honed to precision. The apartment was too quiet. Even Rio's breathing seemed muffled, as though the air itself held its breath. Rio, she shook him urgently. They are here. He jerked awake just as the door exploded inward. 3 spirit hunters poured through, 2 humans wrapped in talismans and 1 kitsune with coal-black fur and 5 tails. The traitor kind who hunted their own for the Covenant's favor. Yuki Shirasawa, the Black Fox spoke, voice like grinding stone. You're summoned to answer for sanctuary violations. Come peacefully or we take you in pieces. She's done nothing wrong, Rio said, stepping in front of Yuki despite his complete lack of weapons or abilities. The lead hunter laughed. Move aside, human. This doesn't concern you. Like hell it doesn't. Rio's voice shook but held firm. The hunters moved as one. Yuki's foxfire erupted, silver-white flames forming a barrier as her three tails blazed with power. The room became a whirlwind of supernatural force, talismans burning, first singing, Rio's audio equipment exploding in showers of sparks. She fought with desperate precision, but 3 centuries of running had taught her that escape mattered more than victory. She was holding her own until she saw the blade arcing toward Rio's unprotected back. Yuki's body moved before thought could stop her. She took the blow meant for him, the enchanted steel biting deep into her shoulder. Her scream of pain became a roar of fury as foxfire erupted with enough force to blow the hunters back through the shattered doorway. But the effort cost her. Yuki collapsed, her flames guttering out. No, 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 Rio caught her, his hands immediately slick with blood. Yuki, stay with me. You idiot, she gasped. I had it handled. You shouldn't have. Shut up and let me help you. The remaining hunter, the Black Fox, pulled herself upright in the hallway. Blood trickled from her muzzle, and something like respect flickered in her amber eyes. You have until the full moon, she said hoarsely. 3 days. Surrender yourself at the old Covenant shrine, or we burn this entire quarter. Every human, every spirit, every innocent fool who shelters you. Your choice, Shirasawa. Then they were gone, leaving only destruction and the metallic scent of blood. Rio worked frantically, using what remained of his first aid supplies while Yuki's breathing grew shallow. The blade had been poisoned, something meant to weaken Kitsune specifically. Her healing was sluggish, fighting the toxin. You have to leave, she whispered as he bandaged her. They'll come back with more. They'll hurt you to get to me. Then we fight together. No tears, actual tears, tracked through her fur. Rio, I can't watch them kill you because of me. I've lost too many. I won't lose you. He gripped her hand. You don't get to make that choice alone. But as the pain medication he'd given her took hold and Yuki's eyes drifted closed, she'd already decided. Better to break her own heart than let the world break his body. Better to return to the lonely immortality she knew than risk the fragile, impossible thing growing between them. At dawn, while Rio slept exhausted in the chair beside her, Yuki rose on shaking legs. She found paper and pen, her hand trembling as she wrote. Some loves are too dangerous to keep. Forgive me for being too weak to stay and too selfish to have never come at all. You made me remember what home felt like. That will have to be enough. She left before courage could fail her, 3 white tails disappearing into the morning mist. Home and heartbeat. Rio woke to emptiness and a note that felt like a blade between his ribs. But grief transformed quickly into fury, the kind that made foolish humans do extraordinary things. He found her at the abandoned shrine on the city's edge, where old Covenant markers still stood like broken teeth. Yuki knelt in the center of the courtyard, white fur stark against ancient stone, waiting for judgment. The Black Fox hunter stood before her with 2 others, preparing binding talismans. Stop. Rio's voice cut through the ritual preparation. Yuki's head snapped up, golden eyes wide with horror. Rio, no, get away from here. He ignored her, limping forward, his shoulder wound from the fight barely bandaged. You can't have her. The Black Fox regarded him with something between pity and irritation. Human, this is Covenant business. You have no standing here. Then give me standing. Rio moved to Yuki's side, taking her hand despite her desperate attempts to push him away. Whatever debt she owes, whatever punishment you demand, I share it. We face this together. You're insane, Yuki hissed, tears streaming now. They'll kill you. Maybe. But I meant what I said. He turned to face the hunters, his hand tight around hers. Love isn't weakness. It's not a liability or a betrayal of strength. It's the only thing in this world worth fighting for, worth dying for if necessary. The black fox's tails twitched. Something old and pained flickered across her scarred features. You think love conquers all, human? You think your sentiment erases centuries of law? No, but I think your laws were written by people who'd forgotten what it felt like. Rio's voice gentled. When did the covenant become about preventing connection instead of protecting it? The words struck something. The black fox looked away, and for the first time, Yuki saw the grief beneath her hardness. I had someone once, she said quietly. A human. I chose the covenant's rules over her safety. By the time I realized my mistake, she was gone. Her amber eyes fixed on Yuki. I've spent 200 years enforcing laws I no longer believe in, telling myself duty matters more than desire. She stepped back, lowering her talisman. The old covenants were born from fear of persecution, from watching our kind enslaved or slaughtered. But fear became control, and control became cruelty. She looked at the other hunters. We've become what we once fled from. The other hunters hesitated, then slowly lowered their weapons. Go, the black fox said. Both of you. The covenant will call it a failed hunt. But Yuki Shirasawa, if you choose this human, you choose his lifespan. You'll watch him age while you remain. That's the real price of loving mortals. Yuki turned to Rio, searching his face. She's right. You'll grow old. You'll die. And You'll have truly lived, he interrupted. Isn't that worth it? 50 years of real connection instead of 300 years of running. Her answer came in the form of a kiss, desperate and deep, filled with surrender and acceptance and terrifying hope. They returned to Rio's apartment as dawn painted the city gold. The damage from the fight remained, but it felt less like destruction and more like transformation. Yuki helped him clear the debris while he played recordings of summer, their beginning already becoming memory. That night, they made love with new understanding. Each touch carried weight now, mortality and eternity braiding together. Rio explored her with patient reverence, learning where she shivered, where she gasped. Yuki took him with fierce tenderness, her tails wrapping them in a cocoon of silver fur and warmth. I'm terrified, she whispered against his throat as they moved together. Me too, he admitted. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe and alone. They came together slowly, sensation building like a symphony reaching crescendo. Yuki's foxfire ignited around them, silver flames that illuminated rather than consumed, turning their joined bodies into art. When release finally crashed through them, she cried out in ancient Japanese, words of belonging and homecoming, while Rio buried his face in her hair and breathed her name like an oath. Afterward, as dawn light filtered through the windows, Yuki curled into Rio's arms, her three tails wrapped around them both in protective spirals. His heartbeat thundered beneath her ear, fast and mortal and absolutely perfect. I'm home, she whispered, finally understanding that home was never a place. It was a rhythm, a heartbeat you chose to sync your own with, knowing that when one stopped, the other would carry the echo forever. Rio kissed her forehead. Welcome home. Outside, the city woke to rain and new beginnings. Lessons at the end. True strength lies not in isolation, but in the courage to be vulnerable with another soul. Love transforms us not by erasing our scars, but by making them worth bearing together. Home is not where you hide from the world, but where you find someone worth facing it beside. The greatest act of defiance against a cruel world is choosing tenderness anyway.